You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey talk to an incredible showrunner and writer and creator from the center of New Jersey.
Ashley Lyle!
Oh my God, the soundboard. I'm so glad she wasn't here for that.
You know what? I'm going to assume we've got a bunch of people listening who've never listened to the podcast before, and maybe that wasn't me putting our best foot forward, huh?
Well, it was putting an accurate foot forward.
That's true.
Yeah. We got to talk to Ashley Lyle.
We got to talk to Ashley Lyle.
I don't know how.
Yes, you do.
Well, you asked.
Well, I mean, okay. Jodie and I were just talking off mic about being a little more focused in this intro.
Yeah, it didn't work.
But I do want to say, I mean, the reason that it happened is because I asked and told her we were from Jersey.
Yeah.
And I think she felt, ethically bound to speak with us.
Yes.
But also, in more than one interview we have done now with other creators, I'm thinking of Sav specifically.
Yeah.
Who, as everybody knows, is behind Chasing Amy doc, which we love so much, that you kind of have to ask.
Sav is the one who told us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I did.
And you did. And she was here, and it was delightful. This interview was recorded between episodes 8 and 9, so take that into account when listening. Mm-hmm. We had an amazing time, and she probably won't listen because she famously doesn't like to hear her voice on podcasts, but if she ever does, Ashley, you were a delight. You're welcome back anytime. Third co-host pending. We need a Central Jersey representative, so
we'll leave a chair open for Ashley.
Absolutely.
Every recording from now on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of Jersey talk.
Yes.
Not only Jersey talk.
Right.
A lot of stuff that I wasn't expecting to hear. A lot of stuff I haven't heard before, which was really cool.
Some really cool behind-the-scenes stories I've never heard her talk about. Just a great time. I hope everyone enjoys it. We obviously didn't pepper her with questions about things she couldn't say. We treated it more as a conversation with someone who has a similar background to us to talk about how that influences the show that she created.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you're new here, because you saw that there's a new Ashley Lyle interview out in the wilderness. Out in the wilderness. I didn't do that on purpose. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. We've got a big backlog. We've covered every episode so far, and a ton of other movies and TV shows that seem to have influenced Yellowjackets and or you and or me. So there's a lot to dive into. I hope you love this conversation as much as we loved having it.
Enjoy, Ashley, everyone.
It's happening. It's happening.
It's happening.
We did it. Guess who's here?
We have Ashley Lyle with us. I cannot believe it.
I know. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is already fun, and we're just getting...
That's right.
Well, you don't know this, but we have a secret plot to make you our third Central Jersey co-host.
Right, we've got the
because
bottom
we are
and the top
missing
covered.
that center part covered. So
I am from Central Jersey, and Bart keeps telling me he thinks I should do a podcast.
There you go.
Every time he says it, I'm like, that seems like a lot of work.
It is. Andrea does most of it, though.
Yeah, you need a producer, let me know.
Okay.
I'm open.
You need an Andrea.
So that podcast would be called I'm from Central Jersey?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you know?
I love that.
Yeah. I think we wanted to start with some Jersey talk because, I've been, Andrea and I talk so much about the specific experience of growing up in New Jersey in the 90s. So for age reference, I'm full Gen X, born in 75, graduated in 93. Andrea's full millennial. So you're kind of, I think, somewhere in between the two of us, roughly.
I am.
Yeah. And so thinking about what it was like growing up in
chronologically
Jersey.
and spatially as a Central Jersey person.
Yes. But I think the reason both of us became so quickly obsessed with the show is just because of how much it resonated with the general feeling of weirdness and danger in the everyday of our childhoods. And I don't know if that resonates with you at all, but that kind of...
Yeah, no, I feel like people from Jersey go dark. And I don't know exactly why that is, but yeah, there's sort of an inherent fascination with the dark side of things. And I did not realize, I grew up Weird New Jersey. And
I was going to bring it up.
It's like the first thing on our list to ask you about.
Love that shit. In fact, I remember in middle school, so my best friend Allison and I grew up together in Central Jersey. We actually moved out to LA together in 2007, and she's doing great. She runs development for Shondaland now. So we we both wanted to write. She had a much lower tolerance than I did for being unemployed. So she immediately started working and temping and just kind of worked her way up and found that was what she loved, was doing development. But from fourth grade on, we were both there. We had a little tiny library in our middle school, and there was one little section that was about the paranormal, like why they paranormal section in a middle school library. I'm not even sure, but we would check out all the books. I would take them home and would study them. And I'd show my mom pictures of ghosts. And my mom would be like, that's fake. And I'm like, you don't know that. And we got the opportunity. This was years ago now, but we got the opportunity to go back. We judged the school forensic competition.
That's so cool.
Very cool middle schoolers who were very into forensics. So we did it in the past, and we went to the library, and not only was the section still there, but there were a couple of books where we were the last people to have checked them out.
Oh, my heart.
Oh my God.
It was very nostalgic, but I was like, kids these days do not appreciate ghosts that we used to.
Or books.
Apparently. So that was disappointing. But and I just feel like Jersey is also the land of like punk and hardcore. And I feel like we like dark, spooky things generally.
Yeah. Well, and so one of the things so you mentioned Weird New Jersey. Like when I was in college, I went to Montclair State. And when I was in college, I worked at the Barnes & Noble in Paramus. I'm going to get real specific since you actually know what I'm talking about. And it was when Weird New Jersey first started coming out. And I would stalk those magazine racks and just wait for it to be landed and then just pick it up immediately and take it home. Like one of the first times I kind of talked to Chris Gethard about any of this stuff was I sent him my photos from Overbrook Asylum in Cedar Grove. And it's just like that. We were just talking about Jungle Habitat, which was a abandoned some sort of zoo where there was rumors there were like pumas and lions running around in the woods in like Sussex County. So I think, and Andrea being from South Jersey, I
had a pet raccoon growing up.
So jealous.
He was wonderful. He was bad, but yeah. I mean, Jodie and I feel like every episode we end up saying like, it is no surprise that people who grew up in Jersey when they grew up ended up making this show. And I'm always like, Yellowjackets is a comedy. I don't care what anybody says.
And that is such a compliment. So thank you.
Every week it comes up, like there'll be a line, there'll be something that someone says, and you'll be like, I haven't said it this week. Yellowjackets is a comedy. I'm like, yes, I know. So one of the things that we talked about when we first started putting together what we would do after the second season ended was we started talking about the like movies and TV that kind of led us to be the type of people that would appreciate a show about like teenage cannibals that also has a lot of jokes in it. And, I was a Heathers person. I was a Pump Up the Volume person, like that whole time frame. But I see a lot of Heathers type humor in this show as well. And I think one of our questions maybe was like, are there references? Because I know that like everybody brings up Lord of the Flies and all this stuff, but are there like those foundational texts for you that were like super important?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the one that came up the most when we were developing it, also very Jersey, is Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Hell yeah.
Of course.
Is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love it so much. And it's one of those movies where you show it to somebody who hasn't seen it, and they're like horrified.
I know.
And I always pinch it as I'm like, it's so funny. It's such a comedy. And they're like, what the fuck wrong with you? And I'm like, no, but it's really funny. And I think it takes a couple viewings for some people to find the humor in it, but I feel like Jersey people get it right
immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. I can still picture the trailer was on the VHS before Empire Records, and I just feel that stuff. We haven't covered that one yet. We'll have to put it on the list.
We haven't. Yeah. Yeah, Andrea and I both worked at video stores at some point in our careers as well. I remember that Welcome to the Dollhouse cover extremely well.
I think Bart worked at a video store. I think he worked at, I want to say either Gold Coast or Hollywood Video. I believe he worked at the one at the Monmouth Mall.
That's incredible.
Amazing.
I worked at a Hollywood Video. I think Jodie worked at like a more mom and pop kind of.
Yeah, they had like 3
store.
stores. It was called Empire Video.
Okay.
It was in Bergen County.
Cooler. Yeah.
So I don't know. Andrea, do you want to... I could ask Jersey questions all day.
I know.
But...
I really could.
I know. What Jersey questions? Give me Jersey.
Yeah. Okay, wait. All right, I got one. Every time anything comes up on the show that is a very specific Jersey reference, we both lose our minds. Like Land of Make Believe, people were like, I can't believe they made up a place called the Land of Make Believe. It's so perfect for the scene. And we were all like, no, the commercial's in my head right now. So I guess, are there aspects of Jersey culture or like sort of iconography or places that you wish you could get into the show, but there just is no place for it or hasn't been so far?
Oh, there's probably a lot. It's actually one of the biggest challenges in making this show is that we film it in Vancouver, which is not the most Jersey place. So we're always having these long discussions with our location scouts and our location manager and our production designer. And we're like, how do we make this more New Jersey? And we keep having to explain, especially when we do exterior shots, we're like, that does not look like New Jersey.
Yeah.
And so it's always a little bit of a challenge to sort of Jersey it up a little bit. I feel like we do our best.
You're doing great.
There's one Jersey reference that didn't actually make it, and I remember it was very funny, is in season 1 when Shauna and Adam go on their date where she's trying to, relive her lost youth. We had them go to an abandoned mental asylum because that was just such a thing that you would do. The one in Marlboro, and it was like, and I feel like I was obsessed with abandoned mental institutes.
Of course.
The network was like, why would they do that?
Oh my God. It's so a part of my entire being that I can't imagine someone not having done that.
Yeah.
It's
a Jersey thing. We're like, that's obviously a thing you do on a date. That's very...
Yeah. You break in and then you run from some Nazis that were in the basement.
100%. You find candles and you're absolutely convinced that people were having satanic rituals. And
exactly.
That's what you do.
Yes.
We did, I feel like with moderate success. So, there's a hotel that features pretty prominently in season 1 and season 3.
I keep calling it the Molly Pitcher.
We do it all the time.
It's 100% the Molly Pitcher. That's what we used it on. I went to multiple events at the Molly Pitcher Inn.
Amazing.
And we still, when we go home, so my family is from Belmar, which is a little further down on the shore, and Bart's from sort of the Middletown, Lincroft area. All of our friends, we hung out a lot in Red Bank growing up. Bart and Rich Monahan, who's one of our writers, they did improv jam together at the Internet Cafe.
Oh my God.
Ago. And when we go back to visit, when we are staying with or visiting with his family, we'll still stay at the Molly Pitcher because
that's so good.
That's so good.
That's one of our questions. So I live in Philly. I'm basically in Jersey still.
Yeah.
Jodie's a little further out, but we talk a lot about when Jodie's coming home, she'll text me on my way to get bagels from which spot is it?
Hot Bagels in Fairlawn, Andrea. You know this by now.
I just wanted to let you say
I bring it up constantly.
Mm-hmm. So are there what are the spots when you come home?
You have to. So it'll be a little bit of a trek, but I actually went to high school out in the Princeton area, and the Record Exchange and Hoagie are 2 must goes.
Great answers.
Gotta hit both of those. Oh gosh, what else? I'm fascinated by the transformation of Asbury Park.
Yes.
When I was growing up, that was Asbury Park was at all, and it's so cute now.
It really is. Yeah, I'm a photographer, and I have shots from the 90s when I would go down there and be like, should I be here? Everything was abandoned, and I have all these photographs that I took, and then I went back last year. I went down to record with Andrea, and I drove through on my way back, and I was like, this place is very different.
Yeah.
And it's very different. Yeah.
It's adorable though.
It's great. And I'm so glad that it's had this renaissance. When I was really little, my parents would take me and my brother to the what I guess it was the fun house essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we would go and we would do they had that Ferris wheel that was like half indoors and half outdoors.
Oh my God, that's
terrified.
Right.
They had one dark ride, like a horror themed dark ride. And this was when I was like 5 or 6. And I was so scared that I couldn't look at it. I would have to like, avert my eyes. But yeah, I have so many memories there. So I really like to go back and check out Asbury Park. And gosh, when we're in Red Bank, it's funny because now we'll just go with Bart's family to like, Chili's.
Right. Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah. Right.
New Jersey experience. It's just going to a chain restaurant.
Yeah.
On Route 35. That's as trendy as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
Yeah.
That's very
Friendlies
true.
after a school dance on a Friday night was like a huge thing when I was growing up.
Oh, God, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned that your family's from Belmar. I was saying to Andrea, I feel kind of bad because I was definitely one of the North Jersey kids that would come down to Belmar after the prom and like everybody would get wasted and be really annoying like Bergen County folks. So,
yeah.
That's me.
That's the way
it is the natural order of things.
Now, Tawny Cypress, she's also from Jersey. She actually went to Belmar Elementary for a couple of years, and then she went to RBR, I think, Red Bank Regional. And she is obsessed with Windmill and Windmill hot dogs. And
yes.
She tried to when we were about to wrap, she tried to like ship in hot dogs for
oh my God,
but that did not work out. I was like, how am I going to do this?
That is so funny.
Really good.
We're very aware on this podcast of where Tawny is from. We have a semi-recurring segment called Tawny's Accent Corner when she gives an interview where it really pops out.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
We're like every once in a while it'll poke up a little bit.
It's such a delight.
That's actually, I wonder if this is something you could speak to or if this is a Tawny choice. Is the obviously scaling it back or hiding that accent on the show. As Jodie and I have speculated that it's like the lawyer in Thai, you know what I mean? Like trying to be a little more respectable, or is it just, where Tawny's from versus where Thai's from?
We made a choice pretty early on because we talked about this a lot, and Bart and I talked about it, and then we talked about it with Karin when we were shooting the pilot, because the question of accents definitely came up. And what we sort of realized, it made sense to us story-wise that Thaisa would have tried to hide her accent a little bit. But ultimately, it also came down to if we were trying to get everyone to do the accent.
Oh, no.
Because we have a really international cast. We have New Zealanders and Australians, and I think that it could have been everyone's wonderful, and I think that if they had really set their minds to it, they could have, we could have gotten dialect coaches, but we were like, why do that? Why make it a thing? And as it is, we have occasional things where we'll have to on set, like just tweak a line of dialogue because I remember it was also in the date scene with Shauna and Adam. Shauna was supposed to say, "This is for all the marbles," and Melanie was like, "Never, ever going to be able to say that phrase. Like it's just not going to happen."
Oh God!
And so I forget what we did, but it was not all the marbles because she was just like, "There's no way."
That's so funny.
The other thing is that there's no one Jersey accent, and it is in a lot of ways really subtle. And in a lot of ways not subtle at all. And so I feel like it totally makes sense that not everybody sounds like they're from either where Jodie's from or where I'm from.
It's such a specific Jersey thing too, because there are many different Jersey accents, but also I think people don't realize how town to town it can be.
Yes.
And so, obviously North Jersey, it's like a little bit more predominant. Central Jersey is a little hit or miss. South Jersey starts to almost get into that Philly thing. And you can be in one town and everyone has the thickest accent, and you go one town over and nobody has an accent. And I really have an accent. You get some drinks in me and it'll come out a little bit more. But
well, so relatedly, we thought, just a pitch for other Thai. Maybe, she sounds like Carmela Soprano when she's other Thai and sounds like a lawyer when she's not. Just something to put in your...
Too much of a giveaway, though. No, immediately.
I know. Good. It's just funny because, like, whenever I get really excited about something or over caffeinated, suddenly I'm like talking about someone's daughter, and I'm like, it's just,
oh my God, I got to go to the mall.
Yeah, it comes out. Yeah. I guess we could, well, actually, I have a really good transition question from New Jersey stuff. Not that we're going to leave that behind ever. But so Wiscaic, right? This fictional town. There's been a lot of speculation about like what comps maybe exist for it in the real great state of New Jersey. And we have come up with a few options. Okay. We've mentioned Old Bridge, Maplewood, obviously Middletown. Andrea, I think you had a couple too.
I like Freehold or Holmdel. I think they're a little too west, probably.
Right.
And
we don't expect you to be able to necessarily answer this, but just going to kind of throw it out there.
You know, we don't have a specific town that Wiscaic is a stand-in for. We definitely, I just think because Bart and I are both from Monmouth County, we just sort of assumed it was Monmouth County. And I feel like if I had to get closer to pinpointing it feels like it's closer to the northern end of Monmouth County. That sort of Keensburg area, or if you just go inland from there. Because I feel like Freehold is a little far west and south.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just want it to be closer to me, you know? I think that's what it really is.
I mean, Wiscaic is all of us.
Yes.
It's just
well, in the
beautiful.
name. As soon as I heard the name, I mean, I'm from like 2 towns over from Hohokus and Wyckoff and all of these sort of like, you know, Lenape sounding names. And it fit so perfectly that I was like, well, yes, of course, there is a town called Wiscaic. I found out there's a town called Gibbsboro from your show.
So North Jersey of you. North Jersey of you.
Yeah.
No, North Jersey. Wiscaic, we knew that we wanted to invent a town, and we knew we wanted to come up with a Lenape name because it just that, you know, you grow up, anyone who's not from New Jersey does not understand that there's, you know, again, Hohokus and Manasquaw. And so this is when we were coming up with it, it turns out it is actually very difficult to pin down like a dictionary, like an English to Lenape dictionary. But the loose translation from the research we could do for Wiscaic is fresh meat. So that's very
good,
appropriate to us. And
incredible.
The only person on the entire cast who can say Wiscaic easily is Samantha Henrati. No one else knows how to say it. We have to correct them constantly. And we're season 3. We have written it out in like phonetic like Wiscaic. And that's still so funny. Do it. It confuses the shit out of absolutely everybody.
That's so good.
There was only in my mind 2 possible ways, and then as soon as I heard it in the show, I was like, "Oh yeah, that fits."
That's one. Wiscaic.
Yeah, Wiscaic.
Yeah, I grew up in Burlington and Camden County, but when I lived in Burlington County, I lived directly across the street from, I mean, they called it the Rancocas Indian Reservation back then, and now it's like a nature reserve, but I like grew up with, they would have their festivals every year, and you would hear them playing their instruments, and it's such a part of our history in such a specific way, and I just love that made its way in. It's so cool.
I mean, on a more racist note, I was in one of the Indian princess things that they did. Do you remember? Did you hear about that?
No.
Ashley, you didn't have those? Oh my God. It was like a racist version of the Boy Scouts for girls and their dads.
Okay.
It was like a Jersey thing. There's actually an article that someone at Crooked Media wrote about their experience with it that I like blocked it out entirely. We were in it for like a year or 2. And then I even as a kid was like, this seems weird.
This doesn't seem right.
Like, I don't know that this is a good idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There was a lot of indigenous erasure going on in Jersey when we were growing up. Like, it wasn't discussed. It wasn't talked about. And so it's sort of interesting as an adult to look back and be like, oh, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And appropriation and sort of like ownership of it for ourselves. Yeah.
So many schools with new mascots in the last like 15 or 20 years. Yeah.
Yes,
for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing that made me really feel, and Andrea and I are both guilty of doing this thing where we're like, that's a Jersey thing, right? When it's like just a thing that every place has, but we think is really specific. But one thing that we've talked about a lot before is this idea that in New Jersey, it's so tightly packed. Everyone is so close together that there are all these different sort of socioeconomic classes kind of piled on top of each other. And I don't see that often in like television. It's usually like, this is the rich neighborhood, this is the poor neighborhood. But in Yellowjackets, Nat's family lives in a trailer. Jackie's family is in this beautiful 2-story colonial, and like, we don't know crap about Shauna's family, which I, would love to, but I
bet you would.
But I just think that, and I don't know if that's something that you did intentionally, if that has to do with like their character arcs or their backstories, but the idea that it just seemed so natural to me that like there were these various social classes existing so close together.
Yeah, no, that is something we talked about a lot, and it came up a lot early on with the pilot when we were location scouting and buildings. We actually shot all on location in the pilot. There were no sets, but and interestingly, we always envisioned Shauna and Jeff and Callie's house as a lot more lower middle class, and it turns out that. I feel like I'm trying not to get in trouble, but the network really wanted it to be a little bit, I don't know, not aspirational, but we wanted to make it like real, like really.
It's like a local furniture salesman, like you know, yeah.
And I remember we fought a little bit, good naturedly, and we were like, no, we really want it to feel, like a Jersey, middle class Jersey.
It looks like the house I grew up in to a degree, like the way it's dressed for sure.
It's definitely a little bit more production designed. And at one point, the big compromise was that we had a bowl of fruit so that it would look nicer. We were like, okay, here's your bowl of fruit. Fine.
Of course, if it was Jersey, it would be glass fruit or like
painted.
Yeah. The fake Pure One fruit.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, that is such a thing. I think that also goes a long way in explaining the accent thing, because I think it's more of a socioeconomic thing than a geographic thing. And I think that you just find, thicker accents in poorer towns, generally speaking.
Yeah. I mean,
totally
I moved
true.
20 minutes away in 8th grade from where I had been before. And we went from like a blue collar Italian town to a white collar, like waspy Irish town. And it was wildly different, the accent.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Belmar, where I grew up, which has changed drastically since I was a kid. I mean, Belmar was a very working class town. It was very Irish, very Italian. And I went to school a little further north, which was very waspy. And I also think people don't realize it's close confines, but you've got some of the wealthiest towns in the country up against some of the poorest towns in the country. And it's wild because there is, and high school is sort of the great equalizer in terms of, everyone's together, but there's very much still a sense of who's in what, category.
Yeah. No, there was a moment in the pilot that I unfortunately related to where Misty still has the sort of 80s perm and everyone else has kind of moved on from it. And when I moved from my blue collar town, I still had my 80s perm and I immediately started straightening my hair because I was like, oh no, this isn't happening here. So, yeah.
You talking about shooting the pilot on location, which I just rewatched again today for the 10th time, and it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
But Jodie, I'm kind of queuing you up. I know you want to...
No, I'll let you take it.
Well, I know you want to talk about the sort of montage, their hometown montage, and...
Yes. So I have read that you are a huge Sopranos fan.
Oh, yeah.
And immediately when I watched... It's one of the things that hooked me on the show because, full disclosure, am not a horror movie person. I have a very weak stomach. You nearly killed me with that last episode. I had to have Andrea describe it for me with my headphones off for the podcast. I just can't. But I love dark comedy and I love stuff about New Jersey. And that montage that was sort of the credits for the first episode before the standard credits that have been modified over the seasons came in felt very Sopranos intro to me. And I have to assume that was some sort of homage because it's got the signs on the turnpike or the parkway. It's got the overhead shot of Asbury Park. It was Tony Soprano going through Lodi. It was, these girls going through Asbury.
Oh, yeah. It was absolutely an homage. And
I loved it.
I do really like how it turned out. It was tricky, though, because we shot the pilot here in Los Angeles. We did that mostly because Karin had a really limited schedule, and part of her coming on board was that we had to shoot it in Los Angeles. Son Michio was about to start middle school. He's about to go to college, which is really crazy to me now. So we didn't have the money to send out a B unit and actually take that footage. So we had to use all stock footage, which was harder to find than I originally thought. And so we feel like we landed in a good place, but we were so specific, and we were like, no, we want this kind of house. And there's all these houses in New Jersey that to the best of my knowledge, there's no specific architectural term for, but they're like that kind of boxy. They're like a story and a half. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I have looked up and Googled it like every 6 ways to Sunday, and there's no name for it that I've been able to come up with. So it was so hard because I was like, no, I want this kind of house, and I was trying to draw it, people. So it took some work. It felt like we kind of got there.
Yeah, you did. For those of us that were would have recognized it if you hadn't, we were like, oh wait, this is really specific. Yeah. So. Yeah.
You might not know this, but the Star Ledger isn't printing anymore. It's online only. No. And so Yellowjackets might be the last recorded reference to the Star Ledger
the print version.
So thank you for that. That's
another Sopranos connection.
Yeah. We were actually an Asbury Park Press household when I was a kid, but
we were a Bergen Record household, obviously. Okay. Yeah. Did you have newspapers down there?
No, we just set up smoke signals and...
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're still working on the printing press in South Jersey, Jodie.
Sorry,
One
I can't
pet
help
raccoon,
myself.
You never hear the end of it,
I know. Well, you've talked about that pet raccoon a few times.
It's important to me.
Yeah. I do think we're going to get in trouble if we don't talk a little bit more about the actual show that we both love so much. But I will keep coming back to New Jersey.
Okay.
So I have a question, actually, in relationship to referencing and inspirations and things like that. You don't even have to say what it is, but is there a sort of homage or a pointing at something from your stable of mental references that people haven't picked up on that you're kind of surprised about? Or are the Reddit detectives just on every single aspect of it, and maybe some that aren't there?
I think that they're mostly onto it. I mean, I would say that, aside from, in terms of just inspiration and reference, aside from Welcome to the Dollhouse, we talk a lot about Sopranos, we talk a lot about Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Absolutely.
I'm on the record as being a huge Stephen King fan, so that's sort of seeped in. I can't, off the top of my head, think of any references that nobody's come up with, to be honest.
Okay. Well, that doesn't surprise me. This show has become a favorite of the people that love to pick apart every screenshot and every possible thing. I'm speaking for myself, but yeah. Okay. This is sort of a 90s Jersey question. There's a serious lack of adults in the teen timeline, even though we don't get much time in before they are crashed in the wilderness. I mentioned we've seen nothing of Shauna's family. Misty apparently lives with a pool and a rat. I
just have to say this. I have always, and I don't know what it says about me and how I relate or not to Misty or whatever. I assumed she was in someone else's backyard. That on her way to school in the morning, she hopped a fence and watched that rat drown in someone else's backyard.
Oh, interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
We definitely intended it to be her house.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah. Again, of course you did.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Oh, my God. That, by the way, was really... So, we actually had a rat and we put it in the pool, but there are a lot of rules around the temperature of the pool. So we had to get the pool to the perfect temperature.
Oh, my God.
Not uncomfortable. And then the rat could only be swimming for a certain amount of time before you'd have to give him a little break.
Right.
And so the way they do that is they would, kind of put him in and then they'd have this little scooper ready. But he was really smart. So he just went straight to the scooper every time.
Oh my God.
And in circles. And it was, we had to cobble together. I mean, we had so much rat footage.
That's hilarious.
Like, we found this one, 5-second clip where
oh my God,
like, he's struggling. So that rat was fine to anyone who's concerned about that. And
that is so funny.
Bright, a very bright rat. Yeah.
I think they're smarter than people give them credit for.
Yeah.
Oh God, we've had plenty of conversations about rats. We did The Craft as one of our films, and we did all sorts of those like things that I shouldn't watch for my own stomach, but I can't help myself. Yeah. The question I think that I had though about the sort of adult supervision thing was more like, was it just because we had so little time in that timeline before the sort of major events, or because Andrea and I were both latchkey kids. Like, I never saw my parents. Like, my dad worked, my mom, I don't know what she was doing, but, and I'm basically an only child. And so we grew up feeling like parents just weren't really a part of anything.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if that was something that you thought about as more of a reference to the time period or more of a reference to these specific girls, I guess.
It felt to us, I think, part of it was just practicality because there wasn't a lot of room for story with the parents. So at most, they were kind of serving as a signifier of what kind of household they had grown up in and what kind of life they had before the crash. And we knew that we weren't necessarily going to tell the story of their families, or at least not for a very long time. So there was that. But also, we did talk about how, when we were kids, we had the opposite of helicopter parents. I mean, we were allowed to do kind of what, and, my friends and I were nerds. We weren't getting into trouble anyway. So we would, and spend entire weekends, and we would go and rent movies. And as long as it wasn't, and we would try desperately to convince them to rent us R-rated movies.
Yeah.
Varying success. And we would walk around and we'd get ice cream and would come back and would hang out outside and would, it just wasn't, your parents weren't there nearly as much as I feel like parents are now. Yeah. So to our minds, the parents weren't necessarily important to their lives in the way that maybe it would be different if we were setting a story now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really felt that. Like, I think, not to sound too much of like a fangirl here but I am, but like, there's so, obviously, who am I podcasting? But just the specificity of the experience of being a kid in the 90s in New Jersey, like, comes through so much. And I think there's ways that people that aren't from that time period or that specific place still love the show for a million other reasons. But I feel like there's an experience that, like, Andrea and I are getting specifically that, like, other people maybe aren't because of that. Yeah.
I love it. That means a lot. And I know it means a lot to Bart as well, because it is such a big part of who you are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've grown up, not only in New Jersey, but in Jersey in the 90s, which is so specific. And, again, production presents challenges in terms of, like, getting that across. But I feel like what we can't do in terms of, how it looks, we can do in terms of how it feels. And so that's our focus.
And we will take any reference we can to not pumping your own gas or, like,
happy.
Anything of that ilk.
Wait, remind me, because everything is always a blur all the damn time. But you guys have seen through episode 8, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So Jeff just last week was talking to the lady at the Jolly Hitcher.
Check out about we were excited to get that in.
It was very.
We were excited to hear it. We had a whole conversation on the podcast last week about, like, the fact that having to pump my own gas was one of the scariest parts of going away to college. Like, I thought I was going to blow up my car. I was convinced.
I didn't do it until Bart and I were moving to LA, because I grew up in Jersey. Then I lived in New York for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And I didn't drive. Like,
Me either.
I drove my senior year of high school. I got use of the car if I picked up my brother after his cross country practice every day.
Nice.
So I would drive to pick him up. I would drive into town to, go to the record store, go to the coffee shop, or what have you. But didn't do a lot of driving. And then I was in school in New York and I didn't drive at all. So when we were driving out, Bart was like, "You have to drive, like, license." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know about that." And the first time I had to get gas, I was so nervous. I was like, I don't know where to put anything.
I know.
I couldn't open the gas cap at first.
I know. I was convinced that like I was going to make some small mistake that I didn't know about, and my car was going to explode. Like,
yeah.
100%.
The most Jersey thing I think about Garden State, which is kind of like 50-50. We covered it, how Jersey it is. There's some stuff that's so Jersey, but when he drives away with the
gas
still in the tank because he's just like a big fear of mine.
Oh, yeah. No, you know what? I did have to pump my own gas when I was in college. I spent a summer living up in Vermont, and I borrowed my boyfriend at the time's grandmother's really old car. And they got so mad. I lost like 3 gas caps because over the course of that summer, I would just pump the gas and I'd leave the gas.
Leave it.
Yeah, because it was one of the removable ones. Yeah. I guess I did pump gas then and was also terrified of it.
Yeah. I definitely drove away with that on my car one time, at least one time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so funny. Yeah, I will take all those references. Keep them coming.
We'll do our best.
I don't know if you can answer this question, but I have to ask. So I read an interview that you did a while ago that was talking about the time period before Yellowjackets, and you were pitching, and you had like 5 pitches. You were working on Narcos, and you had like 5 pitches. One of them ended up being Yellowjackets. Then there were 2 that you said were deeply weird. And I just want to know what those deeply weird pitches were, Ashley.
You know what? I'll say it because either it'll be on record that these. I think that the irony is that we still are interested in them in shape or form. And
because if the normal one is a teen cannibal show, like a teen soccer team that eats each other, like I just need to know what the deeply weird ones were.
Well, one of them we called Fuck Machines, and ironically, it's similar adjacent to Companion, the movie that Sophie did.
Okay.
No, this was years ago, but the idea was that there's sort of like the first gen of sex robots, and they come out with like the newer, cooler second gen. So everyone sells off their first gen, and they kind of get sold on eBay or decommissioned.
Oh my God.
And they all end up kind of working in fast food or being like factory workers. And they've all had their memories wiped. So they're just happily, kind of doing their thing, except for one who did not, the wife didn't take. So she's just convinced that like the love of her life is out there and they've been separated by fate. And then she realizes, oh no, this motherfucker just bought a better version of me and goes on a rampage. So that was one idea that we're like, okay.
That's
see,
so
to me,
good.
I hear that and I'm like, I need this show now,
perfect.
or this movie, or this whatever. Like that's. Yeah.
Well, that was probably the less weird one. The one our number one, and like wrote a whole like page and a half about it, is a body swap show, because we love body swap.
Yeah, me too.
And no one's ever done a body swap. So the basic premise, we didn't have a title for it, but the basic premise was that you've got this like, it's like kind of late 60s, early 70s, and you've got this private detective who's like total cliche, down on his luck, rumpled suit, rumpled tie, PI, working in like Venice Beach. Nice. And he's hired by a rich family whose daughter has disappeared, their teenage daughter. This is such a long version of this pitch. Ultimately, he kind of tracks down this daughter and finds out that there's this very like Jack. I don't know how much you know about Jack Parsons and the Aleister Crowley and all of that stuff, but there's this like old rich people kind of secret society kind of Illuminati thing where their whole thing is like an immortality. They have like immortality rituals, and they need a pregnant woman so that they can take the baby, and the oldest member gets transferred into the baby. It's very Angel Heart. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Angel Heart.
No.
He kind of tracks them down. This is all in the pilot. Stumbles into their ritual at the exact wrong time so that the soul of the old rich guy doesn't get transferred in the baby. It's his soul. So all of a sudden you do a time cut of 16 years. Now our private detective is in the 80s in like sort of John Hughes land, and he's just getting his driver's license.
Oh my God.
He finally has the freedom and the mobility to like figure out what exactly happened when you working the case. Our agents were like, okay.
Incredible.
Yeah. Incredible. See, I don't want Yellowjackets to end, but I also do want to see some of this happen. Like,
I still think there's room in the world for the 80s John Hughes body swap detective show.
That sounds perfect. We've covered, I feel like, a million John Hughes films at this point too. I'm going to ask a question, and there's not really a good place for this, so I'm not even going to pretend to have a transition for it really.
Go for
Except one of the things I have loved so much about the show is the fun little, when there is a phone number, it's a real phone number. You get to call. It's a little mini kind of ARG sort of in the show. Yeah. And I just, again, if the answer is no, we'll just move on from it. Are you familiar with Ong's Hat?
No.
Oh my God.
You will love Ong's Hat. So Ong's Hat is a town in Burlington County. It's like South Jersey, but that is so tiny. It's not even on most maps. And some guy in the 80s in California picked it because it sounded weird, and then developed this huge ARG that took over, and people got so obsessed with it.
Say what ARG is, Andrea, for people who
for
don't
our listeners,
know.
There's alternative reality game. So,
Bart and I worked on Dispatches from Elsewhere, which was all about.
That's what brought this up to us. Was we were just talking about Dispatches from Elsewhere, and it made Andrea think of Ong's Hat, which makes sense, and it made me think of the weird radio station in Montclair that's been playing "I'll Make Love to You" by Boyz II Men for about 15 years. Only in one little part of Montclair, when you drive through, will it show up.
Yeah.
So
good.
So, yes. You would be. I think you would be obsessed with Ong's Hat.
Okay.
And it's this whole story about these disgraced Princeton scientists who go into the Pine Barrens and build a dimension traveling egg. It's great.
I will be looking this up immediately.
Yeah, you're going to be obsessed.
It's so good. It's so up your alley. I do think that along those lines, obviously there's been this debate about supernatural versus reality in this show, and I have no interest in
I was gonna say, what if you just ask, so which is it?
Which is it? No. I have no interest in litigating that. Everyone has their own take on it. I think that's kind of the point. But having this interest in the supernatural and the paranormal since you were a kid, and thinking about trying to keep that ambiguity going in a show like this, it's really difficult, I feel like, or at least it would be. I think I'm just curious about how you approach loving so much these supernatural stories, but then also trying to not steer in one direction or another, because clearly you have this deep love. I mean, Andrea and I bonded over our mutual love of Stephen King ages ago. So
it is tricky. And, I think what helps is that we never want it to become a crutch.
Yeah.
I feel as though in a lot of genre projects, shows, movies, you can explain away so many things if you just say the supernatural definitely exists. I love horror. I love horror books. I love horror movies. I have a horror movie club with a couple of friends who are also writers, and we go see almost everything. And, it's so often that what will start to kind of get under my skin is when they don't have the rules figured out and everything's just because supernatural,
Yeah.
And I think that on this show, it would be really easy to start to do because supernatural, and we really didn't want that to become a possibility. So we're actually very careful when we talk in the writer's room and we get into some of the scenes that feel as though they're supernatural adjacent. We always try to make sure that we can explain it from both sides. So we say, okay, if there is a presence, if there is, something supernatural going on here, that would be what's happening here. But we always make sure there's at least a somewhat plausible, real world, practical, scientific, logical, reasonable.
Frogs having sex.
When the birds fell from the sky,
yes,
that is a phenomenon that happens. They don't even completely know why. They think it might have to do with electromagnetic forces and confusion in the bird brains. But there's nothing on this show that's happened that could not be explained in a rational way. But that doesn't mean that we're trying to say it's all something that you can explain away. And I do think that there are a few moments that are harder to explain, and we like those moments. We actually really dug in with the network, and we absolutely adore our executives. Gary Levine is such a mensch and has been in the show since the very beginning. He's the man who put Twin Peaks on the air, so we bow down before Gary.
Yeah.
We're remember we had a lot of discussion this season about the phone call when Van is looking for the deck tape recorder. And he was really against, the phone ringing without being plugged in. And, we did, there is, a point of view that you could take that this is sort of Van's subconscious and her awareness that something is going on with Ty, kind of sending her a message. But we didn't want to present it that, we wanted to present a spooky supernatural way, because I'm also just a sucker for phones that ring and they
I know.
Scarier than a phone that rings when it shouldn't.
Yes. Yeah.
I think one of the most scared moments I had in my life, I was big into Ouija boards when I was a kid. I loved it. And Bart has 2 Ouija boards locked in his trunk. He keeps taking them away from me. He's like, do not fucking use that in our house. And he's right. You should not.
Yeah, no, I support him in that.
And we've had a couple, when I was moving out of New York, and this is just like a side story, but it always entertains me. He wouldn't use the Ouija board, wouldn't use it. But I was like, well, we're moving, so we can
haunt the hell out of this house.
Yeah, we can open a portal to hell in my New York City apartment now that we're keeping it. Like, it doesn't matter anymore. And so I convinced him, and we were like watching movies, having some drinks, and we got out the Ouija board. We lit all the candles. We did the whole thing. And my friend Allison, the aforementioned best friend, she was moving out with me, so she was staying in my apartment. And she had gone to sleep because she was working a lot. She was like temping at an ad agency and working long hours. So she's dead asleep, and the door was a little cracked. It's a really small New York apartment. So we get the Ouija board, and this thing is like zipping around. Like, it was not doing the thing where it's just kind of you're pushing a little. It was going, and at one point I'm like, oh, spirits, we call upon thee, like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, who is here tonight? And it spelled out, I shit you not, it spelled out very decisively, the 3 damned. And
Jesus.
Oh, that's weird. And then I look at Bart and I go, thank God there's only 2 of us. And at that exact moment,
oh no,
Allison, who is a terrible sleep talker, sat up in bed and was like, like just total.
Oh my God.
Oh no, we have to get the fuck out of here. Like, blow out the candles. And then we just went to a bar and got some drinks because we were like, absolutely not. We should not be in that apartment right now. And we told Allison the next day and she was like, so you left me there?
Oh, that's a good point.
We 100% just left you there.
Oh my God.
That's right.
Jesus. That's terrifying.
More exciting than Jodie and I always joke. I'm a little more, I think, open to the possibility of the supernatural than Jodie is, except Jodie's.
Did you ever play Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board?
I've never actually done it. So Misty is my proxy when they're at the sleepover, and she says, I've always been curious about the science of that.
Yeah.
Because I've never actually gotten anyone to do it with me.
So Andrea doesn't believe me that I've done it and it works. Like, I am not anti. Yeah.
It's like just mass displacement, right? Like,
I guess, yeah, but it totally works. We used to do it a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't know. I was really into the craft, and I relate to like Lottie and her little jars of things and her little decorated stump that she has. I used to make little altars and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I think we've called it like a casual witchiness. It was also one of those things that I'm like, was that 90s? Was that Jersey? Like, it's so hard to tease out, but
I mean, it definitely was 90s Jersey. I guess the question is, were other people doing it?
Right.
Yeah. But total fascination with that stuff. And still, I do tarot.
I know we've only got 3 minutes. I want to be
we want to respect your time,
but
I'm good if you want to go a little longer.
Oh,
okay.
But I also don't know how long the podcast is. No.
I mean, our first episode, I promised our listeners that no episode would be longer than the episode we were covering, and I have lied every time.
One time. It hasn't happened one time.
Not one time. So
no. After which episode was it? 6 of this season where
I thought we were going to have to break it into 2 parts.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So,
so I guess since we are approaching the end of season 3, which is both very exciting and very devastating. And I know that you obviously cannot say anything about this show and what's coming, but we came up with a question that was much more vague that maybe we could kind of like tie into the end of the show, which is sort of, how do you think about more generally ending a season of a show versus like hopefully not ending the show itself, but like what sort of things do you think about when you're deciding how much to tie up, how much to leave open? Like, especially, I mean, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but we haven't heard anything if a confirmed fourth season is coming. So like just thinking about the way that you approach this, like, you know, final episode of a season.
Yeah. It's funny. We talked to a reporter from the LA Times today, and she asked the same question, basically. She's seen through the finale.
Yeah.
And, you know, I suppose we probably should look at it as, you know, what if we don't get another season? We
don't want to entertain that possibility either, though.
I mean, I think, and what we said earlier is you have to have like kind of a delusional amount of optimism to even do this job.
Yeah.
And I think people don't necessarily, anybody who doesn't work in the industry doesn't really know the extent to which the odds are always stacked against you. I mean, just to sell a show, so many pitches get taken out all the time. Very sell. Those that do sell, very, very few. Just a small minority actually make it to the stage of getting a pilot or getting, you know, now there's more straight to series orders, but even then that becomes almost a bigger hurdle to jump through. It's, you know, you have to do all this work and do all this imagining and put yourself in this place where you're going to create an entire story, knowing that the odds of it getting made and you being able to tell that story to an audience are just infinitesimally small.
Yeah.
So I think that we carry that optimism with us, and we approach it as we just have to tell the story in the way it needs to be told and the way we want it to tell it. And if it gets cut short, then that will be very sad, and it would be just as sad for us as it will be for people who are disappointed. But we did not approach this as like, what if? We just went, let's tell our story. And we do approach each season as sort of a chapter. So while we don't necessarily, you know, kind of reach a big conclusion that would stand alone, we want it to feel like this chapter has come to an end. And I think we do successfully do that at the end of the season.
Ooh, can we bring up a third timeline real quick?
I was just going to ask, so I know, I feel like we're going to preface every one of these kinds of questions with, obviously you can't say anything. We're not asking you to. No. But like Jodie and I, since day one, have been speculating what would it be like when the girls get home. And one of the things I thought about last week in particular, it's Ty asks Van, like, what if we can't be together when we get back? Do you really think the world has changed that much? And as I reminded Jodie, Ellen came out while they were in the woods. Yeah. And I wonder what sort of things, this is just like a kind of like fan-y sort of question, but what the girls will be so psyched to have learned has transpired or will have been most disappointed that they missed while they were away. Have you thought about any of that?
Oh, absolutely. We have a running list in the writer's room of, you know, things that they've missed, movies that they've missed, songs that they've missed, big cultural moments that they've missed.
Princess Di dies while they're out there.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
There's a lot of big stuff that happens out there. And so we absolutely, you know, we've always said that that's part of the story that we're very interested in telling. Because, you know, what is that like to have had that much time out there to be so... I remember being on set when we filmed the scene where the girls are questioning Hannah, and you know, it always also makes me feel old when I have to explain things to the younger cast.
The Mulder and Scully line.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they at least know about that one. I did once have to teach Sophie Thatcher how to put a tape in a tape player. I'm like, and I'm going to go die now.
That's true.
I know.
I'm a million years old.
To be clear, I'm a million years old. Great.
Yeah.
But, you know, there was something so heartbreaking to me about the moment where they realized that they had stopped looking for that.
Yeah.
And I think that on top of the, you know, sort of just profound fish out of water experience of coming back into society, I think that there's a lot of very complicated emotions about coming back into society above and beyond, you know, everything that they went through. So very much a story that we would be excited to tell.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because in that scene, you can see it in registering in different ways on different actors' faces based on their own I think I said that when we were talking about it, that Van basically shrank into herself in a way when that realization hit her, and Shauna reacts with anger, and it's just this sort of litmus test for where they are about coming home. Andrea and I just really want to see them try to go back to high school and take like a biology class and dissect a frog or something. Like,
oh yeah,
you know,
I mean, Shauna's gonna get straight A's. Like,
exactly. It's like, what classes would they be good at now versus that they wouldn't have before? They'd be amazing at, you know, specifically biology class, but yeah.
So the things we have really focused on, and then you'll be free to go. I think obviously the Jersey of it all. Obviously, the queerness of the show, the things that really resonate. Maybe the biggest thing for me is the music, and I know you have been asked questions over and over and over again about the music. So I'm trying to think of just some behind the scenes, a question I could ask you that we haven't talked to death.
The music. One of the things that got me so excited about the show being back, other than just the show itself being back, was how many amazing needle drops were in the first episode of the third season. And it would be so hard if so I've long said I would love to be the costume designer in the show because it's so fun to think about what all the girls are wearing. But thinking about how to hold back from adding so many musical references.
Oh, it's easy because we have a
budget. Yes,
that makes sense.
Yes,
and in fact, there's often juggling to be done. You know, we have a finite budget, and it's always really fascinating to me and interesting to find out how expensive songs will be because sometimes it really surprises you. We've had songs that I thought would have been much cheaper than they were, and then we've had like, I don't think it cost that much money. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, the rule of thumb that our music supervisor told us in the very beginning was if you know any of the words, it's going to be expensive.
Right.
So funny.
Yeah. Maybe when they come back, like Nat can be in some sort of like Rutgers hardcore band. Like, and
oh my goodness. It was such a, I don't know if I should say that. I will not get into specifics, but we had a little bit of a battle when it came to, I think it was episode 5 of season 2 when they're at the bowling alley. Because I feel like bowling alleys are so Jersey. Like,
yes.
You go bowling, that is with you. And I don't know about for you guys, but when I was growing up, like that's where all the bands would play. Or, you know, there weren't venues all over the place. We weren't in New York. So, like, all the local bands, they would either play at church rec rooms.
Yep.
Yes.
It's very funny to me that, like, these, like, punk hardcore bands were playing at churches to play at bowling alleys.
Or VFW halls.
Or VFW halls. And so we really wanted a band in the bowling alley. And, you know, there were some questions production-wise about if that was feasible. And we were like, oh, no, we're doing it. Like, and so we got that great as a local Vancouver band, and they were amazing, and it was so much fun to have them. But I could tell all the non-Jersey people were like, why a little band at the bowling alley? And I was like, it's just what we did.
It's just the thing. Yeah.
It's the thing. But yeah, it's really fun to play around with music. Everybody gets involved. You know, our editors love to pitch songs, the writers pitch songs, the actors sometimes pitch songs. We're always pitching songs. Nora, our music supervisor, is so lovely because she's very patient with the fact that we're like, as much as we're asking her for choices, we're just throwing things back at her.
Right.
And it can be it's very cool when you're looking at a scene and you're auditioning songs because sometimes we'll know exactly what song we want somewhere. And sometimes we'll audition like 15, 20 different songs to see what works the best in a scene. And it can often be surprising. I mean, no one had their money on The Offspring for the finale of
but it's so perfect.
It's perfect.
It works so, like, son of a bitch. I think that The Offspring. Yeah. Okay.
Well, and a show that deals with this much heaviness and trauma, like you need Jeff in the car rocking out, you know, to
Papa Roach.
Thank you, Papa Roach.
Truly
and
so
like,
funny.
I kind of want to know how quick Tiffany was a choice because as an older, like as a Gen X person, I lost my mind when the two of them are running down an alley to a Tiffany song. It was like a little San Junipero. It was a little like my 8th grade year. Like it just, I don't know.
That was actually all Bart. Bart really wanted
it.
And he kind of designed the sequence because he directed that one around, he knew he wanted Tiffany in there and it went really well.
It's perfect.
That song brings me back so quickly to like when like Tiffany literally played in the mall that I went to all the time. So, yeah.
I think I will not give any spoilers per se, but 2 musical tidbits I can give you is 1, there's a needle drop in the finale. I'm not going to say what it is. Mm-hmm. You'll know it when you hear it. It's essentially in the very last scene. And it's actually a song that we really wanted to use in the pilot and could not afford at the time.
Oh, funny.
So we were very triumphant about getting the song. And I actually think it's better used here than it would have been in the pilot. So that's very exciting for us. And then we also had, we love our composers, Craig and Anna. They're absolute geniuses. And also as a 90s kid, I was obsessed with that dog. I was obsessed with Shudder to Think. The fact that I get to hang out and work with them, incredible to me. And there's an original song that they wrote for the finale.
Ooh.
So good.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And this is sort of a scoop. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to anyway. So Bart and Craig and Anna made a music video for it together. Cool. And Bart is with our editors working on that. And everyone's doing it. It's so punk DIY style.
That's so cool.
They paid for it themselves. Our editors, Jeff and Jen, are just doing it because they love it. And it was very just like a thing that they decided to do together. And I think it's going to be ready for, I think, like April 10th.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I've seen cuts of it. I think and I love the song. It's so good.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Can I be the most annoying and pitch one thing to you? And it's really only an excuse because if you don't already know this band, I think you will be obsessed. So, Are you a Screaming Females fan?
I know them. Yeah.
Okay. They do a cover with Garbage of Because the Night.
Oh my
God. Is incredible. They also have a song called Wishing Well, where like if you had said, I love that band and Wishing Well is what we base Ty and Van's relationship on, I would have been totally unsurprised.
Oh, I will definitely look that up.
That's amazing.
The Garbage cover. Funny total sidestep, tangent, Garbage story. So Shirley Manson is sort of a neighbor of ours. Which we did not know. And I think Craig and Anna also live in our neighborhood. And so they know each other because they know everybody in music. And but we discovered this because we had, this was years ago, one of my cats got out. It's a sad story. There are coyotes here. And but we were looking for the cat. We had a whole search party. We had like 15 people out looking for this damn cat. And he also died as he lived, being an asshole. So,
like a cat.
Yeah. He would hide and like wait to scoot out the door the second it opened. So like, okay. But so Allison had this, she had this Lost poster and she had just talked to a neighbor. We have these neighbors who live across the way who are Russian and they're very Russian about things. And she knocked on the door and was like, oh, blah, blah. And then this one woman was like, oh, yes, coyote eat that cat my sister saw. And Allison just burst into tears. And she sprang up to find us, and she's sobbing.
Oh, my God.
Runs into Shirley Manson. Are you okay?
Oh, my God.
Unbelievable.
Shirley Manson, if she knows this at all, only knows this as the crying people with the cat.
Yeah. That's perfect.
I'm so sorry. Speaking of kind of the dark humor of your show, experiences like that. Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we could obviously talk to you forever, but we should send you back.
The invite is open for a Central Jersey representative anytime on this show.
Again. Okay.
Yeah. We'd love to have you on to talk about Welcome to the Dollhouse, maybe in the off season if you'd be interested.
I think that would be really fun.
It's amazing that we've talked about covering Welcome to the Dollhouse before, and it's been on this list that we have of, things that we have to cover because of Jersey or because of things that we relate to, and we just haven't gotten to it yet. So maybe we were just waiting for you.
That and Serial Mom are the next two on my list.
Oh my God, I love Serial Mom.
I had a feeling.
It's incredible.
So good.
And it's so... See, this is the kind of humor. And sometimes when people... I mean, clearly we've made a show that isn't going to be for everyone.
Right.
I really had to make my peace with that because it's not fun when you make something and put it out into the world. And some people are like, well, this fucking sucks. And you're like, oh,
it's not my fault you don't get it.
It's a weird show. It's not for everybody. But I know when I can like kind of just be like, okay, that can't hurt me. When someone like really just is like not into the humor, I'm like, okay, well, we're just very different people.
This isn't going to be for you.
This is not for you.
Yeah. And that is the thing that when I watched it as someone who, once again, cannot handle gore, and the first scene is that rough, but then it's followed up by what it's followed up by. Yeah. I was like, okay, wait, I got to at least stick this out, because that is the sense of humor that, it drew me in, and it still does.
It really is the most fun I have watching TV.
100%.
Well, that's our goal. We're just trying to make something fun. So
we are having a great fucking time. And honestly, like, Andrea and I knew each other from New Jersey's the World, but like, we've been doing this now. Last episode was our 100th episode.
So we're officially 2 years.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I'm always shocked when like people know of it. Like, you're kidding.
That's also very Jersey of you. Like, I'm here, I'm doing the work, and yeah.
Yeah. There are people on that Reddit right now arguing about whether Melissa is a hallucination. So there are a lot of people watching it, trust me.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I've been trying to find the picture of me at like 16 with the backwards baseball hat just to like put on our Instagram.
To be clear, for the record, we knew we were going to get roasted for putting her in that.
It's so
good.
funny though.
It's perfect.
It's really fucking funny. Like, I was just like, we weren't completely sure people were going to get this. She was without it, but we were like, it's also really fucking funny to me that she's
so funny
because that was her main character attribute for a little while. That, and I loved her delivery in season 2 when Hobby comes back and she's like, maybe he did die in Betsy.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, Jenna killed that line. But like, I find it delightful that and also I know people who do like just still rock a bit back.
That's a very specific gay woman that I am familiar with, that I have seen recently.
I know her. So.
Yes,
right.
Same.
And I also, sometimes because I'm old and on Facebook, sometimes I make the mistake of commenting in the groups. And like, something I said the other day is like, I've been buying the same black hoodie and sneakers since I was in high school. Like, some of us just find a thing and cling to it.
Yeah.
So let Melissa wear her fucking hat.
Let that fucking hat, damn it.
Exactly. I've been wearing combat boots and black hoodies long enough and flannels that they came back around, and my students dress like me now. So.
Okay, well, I feel like on that note, this has really been so fun. Again, we would keep you here forever. We'd love to have you back. Thank you so much for talking to us at this point. I mean,
I know
for our listeners, next week is the finale, so I'm sure you're so busy.
I'm so curious to know what you guys think of the finale. I love it. I think Bart directed the finale as well. I think he fucking killed it. Everyone who's seen it amongst the cast and the crew are really, really into it. And so I hope everyone else enjoys it. But
we can't wait.
We're so excited.
This cast is incredible. It's been such a delightful ride this whole time. Even when I had to look away when Shauna bit into a live human, I still love the show. So that says something.
So glad. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley.
See you guys next week in the woods.